Here we are. It is mid-November. The snow is flying, and Penn State football lost to Indiana. They play Michigan State. We're in the Michigan State part of the year. You know, when the sun goes down at 3 in the afternoon. I'm Thomas Frank Carr. That's Nate Bauer. Sean Fitz here on the show with me today. And it's an interesting time of year for the Nittany Lions on a couple of different levels. I'm going to ask you guys a question here, and then we're going to talk about it later once we get the kind of the consensus from the chat and replies to the video here. But first, before we get to that, introduce our guests, Sean Fitz and Nate Bauer, senior reporters, publishers, editors, great guys all around for Blue White Illustrated. Fitz, how you doing today? And big picture thoughts here after Penn State pushes Indiana to the wire. What'd you think?
The biggest picture, happy Veterans Day. Thank you to all that listen and consume our content who have fought for our country. We really appreciate it. Beyond that, Penn State, 3 straight losses, 6 straight losses total, but 3 straight losses that, are kind of in different pools than the 2 losses prior to that. You're looking at a team that went through one of the tougher stretches in the country at Iowa, at Ohio State, and home against Indiana, and held up pretty well considering the circumstances. Obviously, the expectations in the preseason hoopla and everything makes this a massive letdown, and I'm not trying to make it anything that it isn't. But I think we've seen some bounce back in this team, and I think it's encouraging heading into the last 3 games of the season. Not sure how it's going to end up, but I feel a lot better about watching football right now than we did against Northwestern. I mean, it's been less than a month. Yeah. So that's been, it's been crazy to kind of think about, but no, some encouraging stuff. And again, I like to be able to talk football, and it feels like we haven't been able to do that for a while, but Penn State seems to have bounced back even with the losses, and you're feeling okay.
Yeah, it feels like the football mattered on Saturday, and we get to talk about that again today. But also coming up today from Blue White Illustrated, Nate Bauer's going to basketball. I'm going to go to wrestling Media Day. So we're going to have Cale Sanderson's press conference here on the YouTube channel in just about 2 hours-ish, 2.5 hours. So right after this, I'm getting in my snowmobile, and we're going over to Rec Hall. Nate, basketball preview? Basketball, little tidbit here to start the show.
Yeah, I mean, let's not get carried away. They play Navy, so as you can imagine, Veterans Day, so that's nice.
Yeah,
it's an on theme opponent. I don't know a whole lot about Navy, so we're gonna have to do some cramming before that one. But Penn State also did not get to see Saturday's game, where they went to New Haven and secured their most lopsided road win in 50 years. They won by 40-some-ish points. I see a comment, what's Navy's zip code? I don't know. They're in Annapolis. It's a beautiful campus. I don't know if you guys have ever been to the Naval Academy, but that's neither here nor there. Penn State is fun to watch. We'll see if they remain fun to watch. There's some young building blocks for this basketball team to grow from, and it should be interesting.
Nate, who's the head coach at Navy now?
It is not Ed DeChellis. He retired.
That's correct.
Oh,
it is John.
It's John Perry, who used to work at
John Perry.
Yep.
That's so close. That's so close. Sorry, I have not done my homework. I apologize to everyone who wants higher quality basketball coverage, but there's been some other stuff. On.
Yeah, the least of which isn't Penn State versus Indiana, which came out on the losing side once again for the Nittany Lions. But going into that game, and Fitz, something you said, like it's been a month since Northwestern. It's been a second football season. These are 2 distinctly different seasons in my mind. What happened pre-Northwestern? What happened after Northwestern? And so that's been my biggest problem is how do we talk about that in my mind when I have different ideas and expectations for this team, as opposed to where fans, I think their feelings are right now about just the absolute frustration at 6 straight losses. But they did push Indiana to the brink. A number 2 team in the country that's genuinely good without significant portions of their team available. And so I got to ask you the age-old question here. Do you take moral victories from Saturday's loss, the progress we're going to talk about here in just a little bit, or is that not a thing to you, even in this season, in this context, when you fire the head coach and everything that like fans really care about is off the field with the future of the program?
Yeah, I mean, you're
think?
looking at two different scenarios a month and a half apart, right? The vibe coming out of Oregon was no moral victories. This is, how things have gone for so long, and it's, forget about, coming back and scoring all those points in the fourth quarter and going to overtime, all that stuff. Forget about that. You didn't win the game. 5 losses later, you get a little bit of grace, I think. Indiana came in really hot. You had a chance to be a spoiler, a chance to be the hunter versus the hunted. I think we've talked about that before, and how Penn State's expectations, I think, kind of sank them this year, and kind of sank the mindset of the team this year. So I think there is more grace for that, because yes, there's a different guy in the head. There's a different guy manning the sidelines as the head coach right now, and everything is blown up. So you take the wins that you can get, and it moves the bar a little bit. But at the end of the day, the loss is still in the loss column. So that's the true takeaway out of it. So, but I mean, I think you can. It's fine to be encouraged. Like, it's fine to say that these 3 games, against the gauntlet that they ran against, is different than what we saw against UCLA. I mean, UCLA and Northwestern. I mean, we're going to take a look back at those years and just say, what the hell? Where was all this coming from? And the last 3 weeks, you don't really feel that way. I mean, you're absolutely disappointed that they should have beaten Iowa. But I mean, let's just leave it there.
Yep.
Iowa, they had an opportunity to take down Indiana. I don't want to play the should game there, but yeah, they had a lead with a minute left in the game. That's a game you should win. But yeah, I think you can give them some grace, especially with an interim coach playing with a backup quarterback. And hey, why talk about it if it's all about just like the black and white of wins and losses? That's right. Kind of where I'm at with that. So disappointed in the loss, but encouraged about where they stand coming out of that. And now they're going to have to roll it over and do these next 3 games. And 6-6 is not the beacon of hope that anybody wants, but it is the maximum of what they can do right now. So that's where I'm at with that. I just think that the goalposts do move. Whether that's fair or not, doesn't really matter. I think the goalposts do move, and that's why we can talk about every team in the country within their own little bubble. And right now, Penn State's bubble is much smaller than we expected it to be, but it still exists.
That is my question of the day for you. We haven't done a question of the day in a while. So, do you believe in moral victories after Penn State's close loss to Indiana? Do you take positives away from that? You can reply in the chat. We're going to talk about it later on the show, and we're going to get to it, throughout the conversation here. Reply to the video as well if you're watching this on replay. Let's get into today's feature segment. And
I don't get to answer the question.
I was going to save your answer, which was probably going to be detailed, thoughtful, and expansive until later. Okay. Do you want to answer that? Do you want to answer it?
No. We'll do it later. That's fine.
Okay. All right. Here's what's going on. So, I'm trying to pivot quickly to to our next segment, because what I'm looking at right now says that we have not gone live, and it is just absolutely messing me up, because I know we're live. We're talking to people on the internet, but I don't have any of my regular things up. So I apologize if I seem a little distracted, because there is a low-grade panic that's going on in my head. But everything's fine. It just doesn't look fine. Terry Smith talked about Penn State, Indiana on Monday. For the most part, Monday press conferences are an extended post-game press conference, because most people haven't actually done anything to study for the next opponent. And we're all still, the game happened 48 hours ago. We're still talking about Indiana post-game. So that's where we start here. If you're new to the BWI Live Show, on Tuesdays, we recap Terry Smith's press conference. So, guys, on the post-game show, I said, I floated a conspiracy theory that somebody else was calling the plays at halftime. But Terry Smith, at the very least, confirmed there was a conversation at halftime about the changes in the play call.
Yeah, honestly speaking, We just didn't make those play calls, and we went into halftime, and we made sure we made those calls in the second half because obviously it gave us an opportunity to succeed in the second half. And then once we started making those play calls, that's why the run splits with Nick, and it helps the run game. So we have to grow and build on that. And we're going to come out of Michigan State. We're going to be super aggressive, and we're going to mix it with some play action and run because that's our formula to success.
So let's dive into this. Just in general, Fitz, what did you think of the change at halftime? And we're here again talking about something Terry Smith had mentioned for 2.5 weeks now, and it doesn't happen in the first half, and finally it happens in the second half. What's going on in your mind?
You're looking at an offense that has been sort of stamped down by Andy Kotelnicki and what he likes to do, and we've seen it for how many weeks, and he's just not comfortable throwing the ball down the field for turnovers specific reasons. Like that's the big thing, right? I mean, whether you have an actual deep threat or not, which is debatable, obviously,
right?
Probably doesn't matter as much. But to me, it's the threat more than anything. It is the exact, I don't want to say opposite, but it's a parallel of what we talk about with the threat of a running quarterback. You're trying to manipulate the numbers to make things work for you. That doesn't mean that you hit every downfield shot. That doesn't mean that you throw it every time you have a guy that's, running a downfield route. It just means that they have to account for it now. And that safety is so important in this game today. When you take a look at the threat of a running quarterback, okay, if the safety's in the box, the threat of a running quarterback, pauses him a little bit longer and opens up Nick Singleton for a 60-yard run. Okay. Yeah. You see all this stuff sort of play out in front of you, and you just want to shake it because it's like been right there for you. And T-Frank, that's been kind of, this is your therapeutic to the sort of voodoo doll right now. You're like, it's right there. And finally you get to see it. And I think Terry Smith has said it the last couple of weeks. And I don't know if Andy just continued to view him as another assistant asking him what to do, or if he viewed him as the head coach telling him what to do. Like, I think that Terry had some words that were very directive, and that opened up a little bit. They threw it downfield twice right after halftime.
Yep.
One was picked. You live with those things, especially when you're like stuck in the mud as much as this one is. So I was happy to see it. I think it was a directive when somebody realized that, hey, interim head coach still means head coach. And I think that matters. So it was fun. It just made things more interesting. I mean, this is the least interesting offense we've watched for a long time.
That's saying something
Shiraka.
too.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like,
this has been 2020 COVID sort of offensive game plan where they don't trust anything. They don't have anything that they want to do. Nate, this conversation about, oh no.
Hey, can I jump in with one more thing here?
Sure.
It was never about Tasir Denmark and Kobe Howard. It was never about those two.
Thank you.
It was about expanding yourself down the field and opening everything else up for everyone. Because Trevor Pena had 6 catches for 99 yards. Trevor Pena is not a deep threat. He had a wonderful catch and run. What was 43 yards or something like that. And he's done that a couple of times this year. But when you filter out all those guys in the middle of the field, hey, all of a sudden more things are open. Yeah. I mean, this is an audio visual medium. Sorry, Nate, I took over for you. But the Denmark and Howard thing, and I think Howard has really shown that he belongs to be in there. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But that is a misplaced conversation when the conversation is about, pushing
it's
the ball.
It's about the game plan. It's about actually throwing the ball.
Right.
The thing we talked about at Ohio State is they didn't put their throwing receivers on the field because they didn't want to throw the football. Terry Smith even said yesterday, Kobe Howard is a better blocker than I was expecting. That's a positive sign. They wanted to have their older receivers out there to block because they didn't plan on throwing the ball, which is why, like, you see him early in the game, the edict was we're throwing the ball, and then they just didn't call those. Anyway, Nate, I'm interested to see where your brain is at because I feel like we might have a healthy debate here because I feel something else coming from you.
It's not going to be like, I'm not going to sit here and whiteboard this, right? That's not my lane. It never will be. T-Frank, did Penn State have a functional, good to like, okay, above average offense last season? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was Andy Kotelnicki part of that?
Yes. Yes, he
Okay.
was.
We are acting like this guy went from very competent to good, right? Somewhere in that margin to a complete idiot, right? That he just lost his brain between the seasons. That just does not compute with me. I don't like that narrative. I think it's wrong. I think that you watch all of these plays, okay? How many times, and Terry even said it, that they had a shot called at the end of the first half, right? That ended up being that check down to Catron that was a fumble. There has to be room for these plays are being called, maybe not as much as they want, but they're not never being called. It's not an absolute. Is that correct or not?
So I don't remember there being a shot play on that play. I was actually just about to go try to pull up the video to confirm, because the way it was read, the way the quarterback read it, he had a curl flat on the first play, then he had a curl flat on the second play of that drive where they threw the ball, and then he comes back to a check down on the other side. So either he read the play wrong and went to the boundary twice, or that's not accurate. And when he said that the other day, I didn't know what play he was talking about. I thought he was talking about in the 4-minute sequence at the end, not at the before halftime.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember. I remember them throwing quick game, and to me, like, no, that I did not see a shot play there. But I don't remember what was on the backside specifically. So I just need to let.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it doesn't even have to be a shot play. It's just like this idea that there's nothing that moves downfield. I think there's some type
nothing
of
adjacent. So it's nothing adjacent. Here's the thing. Here's the problem: is they let it rip against Iowa, and they gave him the opportunity to throw the football, and then that scared the bejesus out of him when he threw 2 interceptions. Mm-hmm. And so against Ohio State, understandably, they dialed that back. But you can't, as I've said it multiple times, I'm agreeing with the overall point here that Andy Kotelnicki is not this bumbling fool that the conversation is making it out to be, but there is the wrong lesson learned from traumas, right? From mistakes, from failures. Terry Smith wants him to keep swinging, and they have gone ultra conservative with the passing game to minimize the quarterback. And this is the thing. There is a certain level of control of when you throw an RPO or you throw a screen. It's technically a pass, right? It's still a passing play, but really it's a run. It's a run play in a dress,
sure,
or it's a zero read throw, and those are easier to defend than having 5 players or 4 players in the pass pattern and threatening and stressing the defense, which is the difference Terry Smith is talking about. So yes, they're calling passing plays, but they're all of a nature that doesn't help the run game. It is all a supplementation. It's like if you're taking your daily vitamins and that's all you're eating for breakfast. Like this is the problem in the passing game.
I'm on board with the majority of this. Where I take issue and pause is, one, Andy Kotelnicki has to wear it. Okay, like at the end of the day, he has either way he has to wear it. And probably most important to me is Terry Smith, who we all think is great, and fans have rallied around, right? Like this.
Yep.
You can't not like Terry. Okay, the messaging from Terry in both of these last 2 games is find a way to hang around until the fourth quarter and then hope something happens to go your way. Like that's what he has said. I'm paraphrasing, but that is more or less the messaging, is find a way to get the game to the fourth quarter, and then you hope that you can make a play. in some capacity. That's different. That's different. Like, that lends itself to all of the things that we're talking about. You like these habits and these behaviors are learned behaviors, and all of this narrative and all of this conversation is living out here. And I don't think that's real. I truly think we are talking about the difference of, and it is a perfectly valid conversation to have, to say Andy Kolodicki does not have the touch this year, right? That art, not science, that the right play call in the right moment has not happened. But we're talking about 3 to 6 plays a game. Different. Like, it's just, like, you can't have it both ways. Because what I see everybody talking about and everybody wanting is, like, throw the ball to Trevor Bania down the field. Throw the ball to Devontae Ross down the field, which they did not do. They threw those crossing patterns to him.
Ross did run it. By the way, I went back and looked. Ross did run a streak on that, but it didn't seem to be an option. Like, I mean, it was a come back to it, I guess. But
yeah, he was running a deep dig on what would be typically the way they read that is, and I'm just going off of what they have done in the past. That's a deep dig on the backside of a play where you read the middle and then you go to the back. So it was kind of a second option on that play, but it was a 15-yard deep dig from Ross on that. Yeah.
This is looping all the way back to something you said, Fitz, but you're talking about the threat of, right? This concept of the threat of has to exist for defenses to respect you. You have to successfully complete one of those plays for the defense to change its mind. And they had not done that in a lot of instances this season, right? Mm-hmm. So the fact that they did it against Indiana, like, Indiana didn't respect that part of their game, had no reason to respect that part of their game. This notion of like, keep trying. You have to keep trying. Yeah, I think that there's some validity to that for sure. Yeah. But this, like, hey man, on one hand, lean into what you are. That is repeatedly Terry Smith saying that Nick Singleton and Katron Allen are the 2 best offensive players that they have. Lean into that. Lean into that. Lean into that. Also, man, if you guys aren't air raid, what are you doing? You're an idiot. I can't. I'm not there.
Terry said it yesterday of what they want from the offense, which is to be a heavy play action team, run the ball and play action. That's what they were in the second half. What that doesn't say is, hey, we want to throw 1,000 screens. And that's where I'm frustrated with the offense and again, we talked about this in the Ohio State game, and I understand it more in that situation, but it's when you're going to have to throw the football. You cannot opt out against 2 of the top teams on your schedule and in the country of throwing the football, actually letting the quarterback drop back and throw. And it means when you're doing it. That is the leverage that you have. That's the choice you have of when you're trying to do that. And we've seen this in the past. Mike Yurcich would do this as well, where he would, okay, we're going to run on first down. We're going to run on second down. Okay, Drew, it's 3rd and 8 against Ohio State. Now you save us. And suddenly the throws on first down are in the third quarter when you're down 14, instead of being selectively aggressive and choosing your moments to try and throw the football. Because here's the thing, you're ending up in 3rd and long anyway. And so, the mentality here too of Terry Smith said back in late October or whatever it was against Iowa, empty the clip. Go out there, leave nothing just leave it all out there. Throwing a screen on first down is not emptying the clip. It is absolutely not part of that ethos. Throwing all of these like RPOs, and we're going to make sure that we have a diamond formation out here, a stack, and we're going to like choose the best option here. Teams have figured that aspect out. If you don't have that threat vertical, you can flood everything and take away all these short options. Anyway, I want to talk about the other part of this, which was the defense. His assessment of the defense. We're going to get to that in 1 second because, Fitz, I need you to tell me about Antifragile Brewing Company in downtown State College, our new favorite Friday hangout before football games. We got one more to go. I'm actually really bummed that we only have one more home game left because that's been my favorite tradition, is now going in the afternoon on Fridays and hanging out at Antifragile with all of our viewers that come and say hi.
Has your team lost 6 games? We don't have all the answers, but we do have a solution, and that's beer. Antifragile Brewing Company, downtown State College. The 3 of us were actually there on Friday. Had some nice conversations with some Penn State fans. A lot of people showing up saying that they have been sent there by the Blue White Illustrated podcast. They're appreciative of the business. We're appreciative of you speaking up and letting them know that their advertising dollars are well spent, because it is a wonderful spot downtown. We got to meet some folks from out of town who obviously booked this before the season. And it was a really, really great experience. It's always a great experience when you go downtown. They've got wonderful beer. I had a West Coast IPA and a Pilsner last week. It was terrific. They've got kombucha. They've got mixed drinks. They've got the cheesesteaks outside, of course, which have become maybe sort of taken on a life of their own here in downtown State College, especially late night. If you're out to 2 a.m. coming home from the bars, apparently there's a cheesesteak there. That's going to be tough to turn down. So check out Uncle John's outside. Check out Antifragile Brewing. Plenty of space, plenty of parking, as Nate found out, as T. Frank found out the other day. And it's a wonderful spot. It's been an awesome addition since April of 2022. Our favorite spot downtown. So we recommend, if you're in town for the final home game next weekend, if you check it out, or if you're coming in for Thanksgiving, any parents' weekends, Christmas break, anytime is a great time for Antifragile. We definitely implore you guys to come down. I was talking to the brewer, Paulo, when we were down there on Friday, and he's like, man, you guys, it's been so great. All the guys that come in and say that they come in from your podcast and everything like that. And he's like, hey, listen, and it's like, your advertising readings are not like, well, first off, they're frantic because that's how we are. But they're off the top of our head. We're not reading a scripted ad read here because we like the place. We know the fabric of the place, and the beer and the people behind it. So we're really happy to be in cooperation with them. And we're happy that our users can find something that they enjoy beyond football. Beer is a good thing to enjoy. So we appreciate everybody, and check out Antifragile Brewing, downtown State College, next time you're down there.
And Nate was able to do his favorite thing on Friday, which is be a man of the people. I had to leave because I had to go and do some errands and stuff. And Nate was in deep conversation with at least 2 or 3 different groups at that time. We're gonna have to make this a regular thing in the off season of just going and hanging out on Friday.
If you talk to Nate when he gets there, it's like following things on Twitter, a good conversation, all that kind of stuff. And then Nate has 2 hazies. And now all of a sudden you go behind the paywall and Nate starts talking and his face gets redder, and it's just, he's lost a lot of weight. So he doesn't have the tolerance that, he had. So I think our buddy was up from Louisiana this week and got a crash course in what's going on with Penn State football. So if you see Nate, just buy him a drink and the information gets better. So check that out. If you happen to see him leaning up against the bar, it's a good time to talk to him.
I'm not leaning against the bar. Stop it. But also, I did go back. I was there in the afternoon.
Really?
Went home, had some leftover meatloaf, and then went back.
I was supposed to do that. I was bummed. I was supposed to do that. I was supposed to meet a friend downtown, but his flight got delayed, so I didn't get a chance to go down. That would have been hilarious if we'd all showed up back later at Antifragile.
I had some friends over at the house that I was entertaining. My wife and kids were away. It was like, oh man, like, we should go downtown. We should do something. And the 2 friends were very much like, wait, well, what if we go up to Bollesburg? What if we do, like, there were a couple other places.
Yeah.
And I was like, guys, no, we're not going to, let's not do that. Let's go to the place where at least 60% of the people can tolerate me and say that they like me. That makes me feel good. I really enjoy that. And the beer's great. It's a perfect combination. Anyway.
Perfect. Now that we've reset the vibes, let's talk about the Penn State defense turnaround, because that was, I think a largely positive experience in the game for most Penn State fans.
It's a combination of things. One, we're deep into the season and we're getting a better grasp of the defense. 2, we have simplified some of the play calling of the defense. 3, we're drawing up a little bit more blitz packages to get the pressure, and our guys are playing a little bit faster and a little bit looser. And you saw on Saturday they looked like the old Penn State defense. They got after it. They were having fun. We got 3 sacks and a bunch of pressures. We have to turn a lot more of those pressures into true sacks. That kid was elusive on Saturday. But I think our guys are starting to settle into the defense and learning it and starting to master it. And, we're putting a couple caveats in there and, putting a lot of pressure on the quarterback now. We want to continue that and build on it.
Fernando Mendoza was blitzed 50% of the snaps in the last game. I just think this is an interesting conversation to kind of open up about the defense and their ability to keep Penn State in that game. So, Nate, what did you think? 'Cause there was a conversation later about like what led to the turnaround, and like as much as we're having a conversation, I guess this is my point. I'll just start with my point here, Nate.
Yeah.
As much as we're having the conversation of Andy Kotelnicki is like everything we just talked about, and he's under fire for all the things that have happened, Jim Knowles is. I think they figured some stuff out, like showed his ability as a defense coordinator in this game to craft a game plan to keep a guy like Fernando Mendoza off balance in a lot of this game. What did you think of their performance, here?
Are we – this is where I struggle, guys, admittedly. Are we acting like this Penn State defense was a complete train wreck for the bulk of the season? Because I'm not there. Right? Like Ohio State is just really good and beat them over the top. Like it has been a season of, I think, like honestly, exactly what Terry said. And there's a notion that, the pressures, right? But the pressures haven't gotten home all season. Like that's been the whole issue is it's not that there's never pressure. It's that the pressure that they've had has always been a split second short of getting home, and not being able to get home has made this defense repeatedly vulnerable to quarterbacks that have been able to move with their legs to extend plays and or scramble. And that remained the case on Saturday. Right. Yeah. And yes, I think that they flustered Mendoza more than other defenses have. Like there's absolute.
He completed 53. Yeah, he completed 53% of his passes when under pressure, 56 when blitzed. So that is significantly lower than his average completion percentage previously. So the pressure didn't get to sacks, but it did affect enough throws. Now, did he make game-winning plays when blitzed? Yes, he did. And so that's kind of the boom or bust here is like it's not all one thing. They were able to get pressure. They were able to force punts. They were not able to make it a complete shutdown where they won the game, or else we'd have a very different conversation about this, right?
I think so. And I mean, again, like it just boils down to, for me, really the same story. And I said this after the game, and I'll say it again. I mean, I don't think it's a bad defense. I think that the pressure off the edge, right? Not having Max Granville has damaged them to a certain extent, right? That has been an issue for this team and this defense for most of the season. But like on the whole, it has just been a defense that has been very, very, very somebody just said it in the chat, like situationally vulnerable, and they've gotten beaten in those circumstances. I just don't think it's like on the whole a bad defense, but I'm just left in the same place, which is when the game was on the line and they had to get a stop, they couldn't.
Yeah,
and that's Iowa. The game was on the line. Could they get a stop? No. Northwestern, right? Like pre and post James Franklin, there's carryover to all of this, and they've gotten better, but still not able to finish it out.
Yeah, I want you to pick up there because there is this conversation of closers. Or is this going back to like there's no superstar where you've got the guy that's going to make a play? Got some really good football players. And as Nate said, I even think I have a different conversation for later. But like, is there a Is that just what it is? They just don't have a guy to be the closer in the game, or is it something different? Because everyone wants to point to coaching. Because like when you don't know, you point to coaching because that's the end result, or that's where it starts. That's the spring from the river at which you're in. What is it to you that creates like that killer instinct to win a game on a drive like that?
I don't have an answer for that. I'm looking at this defense as not a complete train wreck, but comparatively to what we've seen in the last 5 years, yes, it feels like it. And also on top of that, there's a little bit of train wreckiness in there, and the fact that they're letting teams convert over 42% of third downs, tied for 103 nationally. That is where it comes to me.
Yeah.
It's like the ability to make that play in the moment is what you're missing from this team. It's not like I don't know if it's a star, but it's a lack of, number one, havoc, because you're looking at what they did against Indiana, and they blitzed how much more this week because of the deficiencies I think that they've had elsewhere, and it worked, and it absolutely, like that's how you compensate for not being able to get it home. And to their credit, Zane Durant played better, Dennis Sutton played better. Like your guys that you thought could be the havoc monsters played better this week, and when you get that combination versus extra pressure, it helps. But at the same time, you're looking at the opportunity knocking and Penn State really not being there. And that is what you look at. And when I single out something like third down defense, it is, yes, it does give you more opportunities to do that, but also you should have been off the field before that. And that's really what you're looking at with this defense as a whole. And again, the standard is the standard. Penn State's had the best defense in the country since 2021. And then this year, it looks very different. So that is where I would disagree with Nate on this one. Is that yes, they've had instances where tackling has been an issue, stopping the run has been an issue. We talk about scheme fit. We talk about the guys up front that sort of don't fit what Jim Knowles likes to do. And now he, I think, met them in closer to the middle. I mean, he's never going to fully meet anybody in the middle, but he came at with his blitz packages with the ability to bring pressure off the edge, and it worked. And it's a nice little Band-Aid, if you will. And I think they can continue to do that, especially against Michigan State, who you don't know is going to be a starter at quarterback, but you also don't feel 100% confident that whoever the starter is going to be able to tear you up like Fernando Mendoza did. I mean, to me, you're talking about this Indiana game as the sort of antithesis of one team made plays, the other team didn't. And those guys made incredible plays for Indiana. It is sometimes you got to tip your hat and go to the other side.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we can't look at this team and say this is a defense that has you don't have the confidence in them to get it done in a situation like this, because they've been in several situations like this before. Iowa, a great example, where they just haven't come through. So yes, I think what you're saying is they don't have that one guy to step up. Tony Rojas missing makes a big difference, no doubt about it. But they don't have that one guy to step up and sort of make the Tom Holly fumble type thing, like you're always looking for that kind of play. And Penn State just hasn't had it.
Yeah, we're talking about the deficit of Chaz Coleman, who is a true freshman, as guy like, ooh, that's where we are. Ivan Kamaju and Jalen Harvey are out there because Max Granville didn't even play this year. But all these players that we just mentioned, are they going to be here next year? Terry Smith had that conversation and has been having that conversation. Nate, did you got something there?
Oh, no, I was just there was a moment, two things. There was a moment where it felt like the interception in the fourth quarter was that. And then there was a moment on first down. They had a sack on first down, right? Of the last drive. And it was like, man, like
people are angry about the celebration that didn't have anything to do with the next play.
I didn't
notice that. The Zane Durant.
I noticed people were mad about it, but I didn't.
They were mad about it. Zane Durant was in his 3-point stance for 2 seconds before the snap. So that was not it. So it was
I didn't even notice, honestly. I didn't notice the next play. They were lined up. They were ready. The problem was the coverage they called. Yeah. And what they were trying to do versus what Indiana did in response to it, which I broke down. I broke down the whole final drive over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, which is a great time to remind you to go and check that out. But Nate, we interrupted you. Where were you going there?
I was just gonna say it's almost uncanny at this point, the way that they've lost all of these games. And I have a deep understanding watching Penn State basketball for 20 years, how teams that get close and consistent, right? There was a year where, and I'm going to mess up the stats here, but there was a year where they lost like 15 games by 1 or 2 possessions, right? 6 points or less. And it's kind of like, well, what happened? What's the commonality in all of that? And yeah, it's players making plays. But it's also just like, I don't know. So like sometimes you lose, and sometimes there are teams that win when they shouldn't, and they roll on that. I mean, momentum, is it a thing? Is it not a thing? I don't know. You hear different opinions about those things, but like I just can't help but see this program as one that goes back to the thing that I was saying literally like 6 weeks ago, which is they haven't had anything to feel good about this entire season. And I think that weighs, I think that impacts people.
Yeah. Which is,
I think it might.
All right.
Which is why, like, you're in this situation going back to, and I just want to remind everybody the question of the day, like, moral victories, is that a thing? I feel like when you put this team through a blender like you did, and again, I went back to the availability report in Indiana, and if you look at the length of the availability report versus the length of the availability report for Indiana, they had like 6 players on there. Penn State had 13 just in one section. And that's just off the top of my head. I don't know the number of, it's probably more than 13 players. A lot of those out for the season.
I will push back on that, because in the Big Ten, you are required to put guys on that list from the 2 deep, from your selected 2 deep. So Indiana had 6 guys missing from theirs. Penn State lists everybody. So no disrespect to Dante Nastasi, but he's been on there every time. Like, he's not playing.
How dare you?
I'm sorry. It was the first name that popped up.
Fair point. Josiah Brown out for the year, not in the 2 deep. Fair point.
Chaz Coleman was it. Smolik was it. You know, it is like you're looking probably looking at similar in the 2 deep. So I will push back a little bit on that, just because it's and I wanted to clarify the Big Ten rule, and that's why, like, Penn State last year had a really long list, and then they got like a month into the season, or I think into Big Ten play, and all of a sudden it was half of what it was. That's why. So
yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk about the portal conversation, because we're in the final 3 weeks. Penn State is fighting for bowl eligibility. And are they going to be around here? Terry Smith says he's having conversations with players, and the parameters around
I've had some conversations with some players, you know, just talking about the future and what their plans are. You know, essentially the consensus right now is wait and see. We don't know. It depends on who this new head coach is, and, you know, and then decisions are going to be made from there, because, you know, whoever that coach is, their style of play, right? What type of defense is he going to bring in? What type of offense is he going to bring in? Does it fit these kids? So we're all in that wait and see. So we'll see how it all turns out.
I think the thing that to parse there is, even if they fit the style of the new coach, do they want to be here anymore? And then are they going to be offered something to go somewhere else? How do you, because that sounded positive to me, of like, if these players fit, they want to be here. Is that factual reality? Like, is that close to being something that fans should feel comfortable about? Okay, if I understand these things all work out, a lot of these guys want to be at Penn State. Like, how do you feel about that kind of feeling coming out of that answer?
I think there's some truth to that, given how Penn State recruits, in terms of a lot of their base is from Pennsylvania. It's from the region. Your parents can come see you play. You know, there's so many things that when we talk about recruiting, it's not all money. Well, I think that there's a similar lineup there, but also they've had the experience of going through a college program, realizing where they're at in this college program. And I think that's a big thing right there, is realizing where you're at in the pecking order at your current spot, and how this might change with the like the overwhelming churn that we might see with outsiders coming in, with whether that be from a current roster with this next head coach or from outside, from the portal. Like, you have to look out for yourself first and foremost, which is why you're probably going to see guys go into the portal but stay at Penn State too. Like, there's that option that we don't really talk about as much, because usually when the guys go in the portal, they don't come back around. I think Filbert came back around, and there's a couple of those guys, but like they've been outliers for up until now. That you might see a little bit more of that this time. So yeah, I think there's something to that. I mean, you got to understand that there's this place is not for everyone, and it's probably not exactly what those guys signed up for. So if you get a chance to have a fresh start, get a chance to get a boost in compensation or whatever, yeah, you're going to take people up on that. And as we've seen, there's going to be a lot of wrong moves made. Like, there's going to be guys that, think the grass is greener. And that's why you've got a guy like King Mack who did that last year, and all of a sudden he's coming back. And I don't know, we would throw thriving in there, but he's holding his own and doing a good job.
Playing a lot.
Yeah. But it's a cautionary tale, not just from a coaching staff perspective or anything like that, but it's a cautionary tale of, hey, you're going to go somewhere else and you're going to be an outsider, and there's going to be expectations. You don't meet those expectations, you're not going to play, and you're going to find yourself in the same situation a year from now. So there's a lot more to think about than just, well, if I go over here, they're offering me the most money. And I think that makes the most sense for me, because, a lot of these guys still have pro aspirations, and whether that be, a guy that's going into his fourth year that might be a starter next year, or a guy that's going into his second year, like that's a lot to think about.
Nate, what do you think about the positive or negative view of the portal conversation right now?
I just think that it's the same as the coaching search, that I'm not even really sure that it matters what fans think of it. It's just fluidity. And like, I think just generally speaking, for humanity, uncertainty sucks. It's just not, not a pleasant place to be when you're not sure what, like what your future holds and where you're going to live and what program you're going to be a part of. I mean, all of those things. I think that there is an inclination, like, that's maybe being a little overlooked, to, in the vein of, I'm staying committed to Penn State, but examining my offers.
Exactly what I thought.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Is so, yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of guys that will say, hey, I don't want to stand up from my chair in this game of musical chairs, but also if there's a game over there that really wants me and I don't feel like there's a chair left for me at this place, then they'll consider that. I do think one dynamic that is somewhat interesting is, I actually think there's like a little bit more leeway for the younger classes in terms of fewer hurt feelings. I think the older classes, the seniors, juniors, guys who have been around for a while, feel very burned by this situation, right?
Right.
The things that you were part of, the program that you helped build, right? I mean, the class 2022, 2023, those are significant pieces of what this season was supposed to be, what last season was, and why this season didn't turn out. But for them, those hurt feelings only matter for another month, right? Then that ends. And the younger guys, the freshmen, the sophomores, even guys who may have thought that they should have been more included in this year's game plan or this year's approach. Those guys have an opportunity to look at this as a fresh start in which that's all they know.
Yeah.
Right. They've only experienced one thing.
There's
but
also
only experienced it for a
opportunity.
couple of months.
Yeah, there's also opportunity at Penn State. I think there is this kind of, as you mentioned, grass is greener sort of thing where there's all these opportunities outside, but if everyone leaves, then there's also starting places. Like, you have to field a team at Penn State, and you have an equal opportunity maybe at a certain point of staying where certain things, like where your classes are and all that stuff, as opposed to having to go and have a completely fresh start somewhere else. As Fitz said, where the expectation is then you're getting on a moving train and you've got to find your seat very quickly in a pressure perspective, other than there's, as you mentioned, Nate, a fresh start for everybody here in the program with a new coach.
And there's also the fact that the new guy's going to have the say in taking guys back, which I think is a harsh 100%. Reality that a lot of people probably don't want to understand. I get it. It's not what it used to be, and that's unsettling for folks. So you look at that and you look at what he's going to bring. You look at the quarterback room, for example, how that all is going to work out. I mean, that could be completely wiped out, and it's going to be a process in rebuilding that, which is possible. I mean, you can look at this and say, hey, I've got an opportunity, and this guy that's coming in has developed quarterbacks, and Penn State hasn't been wonderful at it. So you've got an opportunity there, and young receivers, young players all over this roster. If you look at the guys that we've highlighted to, as I don't want to say must keeps, but the guys that would be priorities, there's a lot of young talent that really stacks up. And now will all that young talent hit? No, it's not. It's part of college football. But you still have the opportunity to sort of wedge that gap, get in that margin where the opportunity meets the upside in terms of stepping on the field and playing for the next couple of years.
Fitz,
Nate, final thought.
Well, you follow Colorado much more closely than I do. Did Deion actually bring Louis Vuitton with him to Colorado?
He brought talent that was better than what they had, and he brought. I'm not a brand guy, this very, very well, but he brought something that made sense. Now, he brought it from a program that he built Jackson State, and he built that version of Jackson State and got guys above Jackson State's line and then took them with him. So I think it's a very different situation when you're talking about wiping out the roster, because you've got, and I think I'm walking right into your point, you've got such a higher bar at Penn State. I realized it halfway through. I was like, he's leading me into this water here. He's going to drown me. Where you've got guys that are going to be better than some of the players that you're going to bring in from your previous institution. So you've got that going for you. You're not going to completely flip bring your entire roster over. I think that makes sense. Yeah. So yes, you can play into that. You look at, and here's the thing, completely different era of roster building. But if you look at Penn State's class of 2014 that came with James Franklin, those Vanderbilt guys, a lot of them pretty successful. Yeah. Some of them not, but a lot of them pretty successful, and they meshed well with the guys that Penn State had on board, and was kind of one of the building blocks for a Big Ten championship a couple years later. So you have that opportunity to mesh well, but as a different era in roster building, it's going to be a lot different and probably a lot more expensive this time around.
Nate, did you have anything else? Was that your final thought?
No, I think
I just went back on my whole thing.
Yeah, I think there's a danger in, and I'm like hand up. I said 90% of people in the program are going to be gone next year, and people took offense to that, and that's fine. I didn't actually mean 90% on the number. It's going to be a lot, right? Yeah. There's going to be a significant turnover, but a big part of that is, I think we struggle to see how all of these individual, we try to put things into blankets and this massive organism that's moving as one, but it's not. It's a bunch of very disparate, separate organisms that all have their own choices to make, right? The player themselves with their family has to make a decision based on what the new guy wants, but also based on who else wants them, right? There's just all these different things that are happening all at once that are impossible to know until it's happening. So yeah, it's going to be another month-ish of wait and see.
Well, I'm going to pivot here because we've basically discussed Penn State, Indiana. If we have some time, I have some other things I want to discuss. But I want to get into this aspect of the coaching search. And this is how I've been trying to think about the final 3 games and trying to think about the potential of a bowl game and going 500 this year with all this situation of like, what are you building towards? Because I feel like there is a certain amount of aimlessness from Penn State fans, and you know, like you've passed the big games, right? So Nebraska is still on the schedule. I don't know how people feel about that game. It's Michigan State week, and so like there's a certain amount of apathy about this team outside of the outright anger, right? That I still think of like, this is a different team than the one that was ranked number 2. They've lost significant pieces. Like, this is a different season. So what are the goals? What are the points that matter here? And that's why I want to know, is a bowl game meaningful? Is going 500, winning these final 3 games, is that meaningful? And I want to pitch this to you. You're trying to attract the best candidates, right? And Fitz, you just put out your latest hot board. Does winning 3 games at the end of the season, making a bowl game, showing kind of institutional stability, does that make Penn State more attractive to a coach of like, okay, it's not going to be a total gut job if I have to go there? Or is all the things we just talked about make all of that irrelevant? I don't know how to understand the context of these final 3 games in this season in the meaning of going and getting that guy. Because I know it's going to be tough to get the guy Penn State wants. Do these games factor into that, do you think?
Not really. All these guys that are looking at this job are at least spending some time examining the roster to understand what's there if they take it. You have to. You have to have a binder somewhere that's probably hidden from your boss of the Penn State guys that are out there. And there's an understanding that Penn State still has a bunch of talent on this roster. And that's not just like the Penn State people saying that. That's all over the country. There's an understanding that there's talent on this roster that can be harvested for the next guy. Now, you want to see some of that stuff step up because as we're talking about the veterans playing well and not quitting and everything like that, there's also guys like Alex Tash who are playing extremely like more than we thought they would. I almost said extremely well, but like he's playing for a freshman that just got dropped in the deep fryer. He's seems to be cooking well. You got Darius Dixon who is I don't do.
No, I loved it.
I liked it. No, it was good.
Yeah. Darius Dixon, is a guy that Darius Dixon is very interesting to me because we talked about a little bit earlier in the show how your retention possibilities are higher when they're local. Well, this kid's from California and he took a chance on coming across the country to play for Terry Smith, to play for Penn State. And he's thriving. He's doing well. He's doing really well. At sack this week, which forced a fumble that I completely missed, but forced a fumble and he was out there on the last drive of the game, which is impressive for a true freshman.
Yeah. He also made a mistake that led to the interception. So, involved in that one kind of.
Cool.
Yeah.
We highlight all the highlights here. But you've got a guy like that who might have opportunities that for schools that passed him up because that was his recruitment, right? You thought a kid from modern day that was as good as that, USC would open the door for him. And, I think his last 2 were Penn State and Washington, maybe something like that. So it was a very outsider type of recruitment. Now all of a sudden he's got opportunities to play closer to home at bigger programs closer to home. So like those are the things that you're going to have to look at all over this roster with guys that make sense to stay and guys that, I could see why, you want to play closer to home, have his family play. And he's a year into his career. So he's probably playing for the next 2 years and then the draft. So there's so many different things that are at play here for these coaching staffs. And when you take a look at all the guys that we have on that hot board that we just put up on Blue White Illustrated this morning, it's just very interesting to see the overlap in potential relationships that those guys will have. Because I think that'll matter when the new guy comes in. If Eli Drinkwitz he's had more Pennsylvania quarterbacks than James Franklin had during his entire tenure at Penn State. Like that, these things are all fascinating to me when I look at all these different potential relationship building aspects, and then that's going to matter over the next couple of months.
Nate, does it here? I'm trying to the meaning of these last 3 games. Like I find it hard to understand. So help me out here.
Yeah, I don't think it's relevant to the coaching search. I think it's a far more compelling and interesting story or narrative at this point than is being given credit. Actually, because. One, I'm just going to put it out there, right? The low energy comment from practice last week, that narrative that took hold. They were pissed. The players were pissed, families were pissed, coaches were pissed, weren't happy about that, and then went out and took number 2 Indiana to the wire. They've come this far, right? At this point, have gone through. It is far more interesting now than an 8-4 season, right? Because they've kept playing. Everything that could have gone wrong has gone wrong, and they're still showing up.
Yeah.
And so now it's like, well, one, are these worse teams than they faced the last couple of weeks, the last 3 weeks, really? Right? Iowa took Oregon to the wire. That's not a bad Oregon team, right? Like there is a piece of that to say, hey, this Penn State team is not close to what the expectations were before the start of the season, but also
you're right.
I'm getting a
lot of Penn State basketball vibes of like they're going to be in every single Big Ten game and they're going to lose every single Big Ten game, and they're like the difference between 4th and 15th in the Big Ten in the Big Ten basketball standings is always like 17 points, like total in a game in a season.
So that's what this is. Younger players that have developed through the season, getting more opportunities that by default they have to. But also figuring it out with, and I made this comment to you earlier, right? Like in a lot of ways, Penn State basketball this year is currently, and they might lose a ton of games, but it's going to be more likable than last year's team. And now, due to the circumstances for Penn State football, and I understand everybody or a lot of people like hate this team, but now there's actually maybe a little bit of a charm to it.
So that's what I've been thinking. This is why I've been trying to like get this feedback from fans. And I put this out, I think either last night. I put this out last night. Penn State wins out and makes a bowl game. Meaningless or meaningful? 62% of fans do think it's meaningful that this team finishes 6-6 and doesn't have a losing record. It is interesting, like how we just the appetite on this side. It's a thing that happens with people that are in our seat and in other situations where, like, the loud vocal minority, 30% of fans are absolutely furious. And it doesn't matter what happens. They hate this team, as you just mentioned, because they didn't come through as the number 2 team previously. But most fans are still invested. Most fans are still invested in this team winning these games. And I think the team is invested. And to your point, they took some of these really good football teams into deep water. And now they're playing teams that aren't necessarily good. The fortunes can absolutely turn around in the last month of the season, which is why I was just curious about like the perception of Penn State right now, either internally or externally, is not good. But if they finish 6-6 in this situation, does that do anything for anybody outside of the storyline and the narrative? And it's been a really interesting thing to try and dig into here as we head into the November part of the schedule, where even in a year where they're winning and they're going to the playoff or they're going to a New Year's Six bowl game, people are like, yeah, it's the Rutgers game. I don't necessarily care as much after the Ohio State game. Like, this is always a predictable thing. It's always a predictable thing that after the Ohio State game or whatever the final big game is, then kind of interest tanks until it gets to a point where maybe they play Maryland in the final week with a chance to go to the Big Ten championship like last year. So it's just been, I've been trying to figure out what is the buy-in from fans left, because I think the team and fans, there is a disconnect between the two. At least it seems to me.
I'm not going to say that it doesn't matter whether fans are bought in or not, but like the players and the coaches still have to do it. Like they got to.
Well, it matters to this YouTube channel. It matters to this YouTube channel.
I know, but like that's business. Like that's a totally different conversation. Yes, we're gonna all of the attention for the next month at least, is going to be on the coaching search. Absolutely, much more than the team and its results. But people are still going to watch the games. Right. And now it's at a fork in the road of, is there redemption out there for these players, right? Their families and the coaches.
All right. Final thoughts here on the show. Fitz, get us out of here on something a little more interesting than where I ended us. I feel like
beer. We love beer.
Beer. There we go.
No, we're
perfect.
Check out the hot board. We're talking as this thing continues to go. I think it's interesting to watch the process play out. No, I don't have anything else to say other than no place to follow it better than BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. That's all I got. Sorry.
All right. Well, for everyone here on the BWI Live Show, I'm Thomas Frankar, Nate Bauer, Sean Fitz. We'll be back tomorrow. We're still going to talk about Michigan State, like the next team on the schedule. We're going to get into that, and we're also going to be talking about maybe some stock up, stock down with Greg. And of course, we got wrestling coming up in just a little bit, and basketball tonight. So BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel, your place for Penn State sports. We'll talk to you tomorrow.